The lessons you taught me, and what I can't forget. Narcissia Netal. The introduction and unsheathing of the dagger. What I have learned in 18 years, some never get taught in a lifetime. What is never one or the other, but what you take from it to make anew. Through 18 years, I have been through the worst of humanity, without having ever stepped outside of the States. We often talk of horrors beyond our shores. We talk of archaic monsters or gods, demons, but the true horror I have seen is what humanity can do to each other. There are things I cannot speak on yet, simply because I am still processing them myself. Through all of these tragedies and death of self, I have come to realize a constant failure of which could have prevented my slow degradation and descent in all of it. The family of which I share blood with. Through thick and thin, they were not there. There were a few engaged in creating suffering, calling it some justified act by some higher idea of morality, of which now they use to justify every action they now take when raising and dealing with my brother and sister. Because blood gives right, that much I have learned. Their abandonment has shown that the idea of family is dead and rotting within the bowels of America. There is no room in our lives for ones who are fake. I looked and looked at other people with loving parents, with almost an abstract feeling of disgust. Not towards them, of course, my friends are family to me, a more meaningful one that blood could never understand, to which now has dictated and given me the courage to move forward. The disgust comes from knowing I never had, and will never have that, from the blood which binds me to family. Such a term is an insult to the friends who were actually there. In the mental hospitals, friends comforted me. They helped me. They gave me comfort to move forward, while family showed up whenever convenient to keep their status among some made-up hierarchy, that of which would collapse when the curtain on the window moved. Truth dies the moment we subvert our eyes. Love dies the moment we decide that affection is a past object, of which is traded for some worthless status among the hegemonies we selflessly worship. I suffered and I screamed, to which they never even bothered to help. They heard it. For 18 years, not only have I been struggling alone, but I have seen them openly invalidate and ignore my feelings. There is no more room for them, as most of them have claimed to have some form of love, and have not supported me in my future. All I ever wanted at the minimum was an acknowledgement, at the maximum the approval that they were at least some form proud of me, even if it didn't suit some liking or love they had for a style. Even when I struggled financially, I was then shown how much it really didn't matter. That if I was to die, the only care they would have is to claim how they have been there, even through their negligence could have led to my death. This is very true, as I have done public experiments to show this. Every show, every book, every post, every call, every ask to talk, they didn't care. They couldn't. I was nothing. My love was one-sided, until our apathy merged and became mutual. Make no mistake, there is no hatred for them. I cannot hate what never was. I cannot hate what never was, but only the feeling of disgust and wrath, of which now crash and collide like the feverish, tremendous tides of the Atlantic Ocean before an impending storm. There is no more room for sorries or false statements. You give what you get. This is what you get. People excluded from this, either partially or wholly. Ida Blaharski, my sister. Tyler Brzezinski, my grandpa, birth giver's side. My grandma, birth giver's side. Anyone else not mentioned in the last section related to me purely through blood and genes, this will now apply to you. I address my concerns with civility, and despite the current justification to greet the situation with the sharpest blades possible by the English language, of which I would tip in venom only possible by said justification, I shall greet this with the elegance and civility I have come to realize is more worthwhile than the vile words we can conceive. Because I'd rather not stoop to your level, or be like you. Because I am not. And you approve this. Nor will I indulge both of us in a walk through the past, or make things of which you will never take accountability for, because accountability would be inconvenient to the mask of which you portray, a key peacock displaying, hiding the wickedness you preach against. Instead, I will thank you for what you've taught me about family. about humanity, the lessons of which I have come to hold like arteries in my vessel, pumping through my veins to give me the new life and liberation I have seeked. You can never grant me what I have had. What I have granted myself was from realizations. I did not need what you were, but I did in a sense need what you've done, to become something far better than you. Time shall tell my tale through the fleeting time we all have. Never enough or too much. Either way, if I'm forced to be here, it's by my terms and by my rules. Despite denial, death looks over Arcadia's. For time is never linear and finite. And since none of us choose to be here, we play by the hand we are given, to which then we must decide, who are we and what do we mean? I have learned words are meaningfully meaningless. One thing I have learned is how powerful words are and the effect of them. I have learned how one can say a sentence but mean nothing, or how one can say a paragraph in only 2 words. The dictation of such is a lost literacy upon newer generations, but the art of linguistics is akin to the art of war, always shifting and changing. In this I have learned the real meaning of I love you. It is not a statement, but a proclamation of which dictates further futures with said thing, person, or being. I love you is not something you say coldly, to which you never mean. It is not something you use to justify your action, but to explain. Love does not justify pain and abuse. It does not justify crossing boundaries. It does not give you the right or ability to save anyone. You cannot fix them. You cannot save them. You can only love them. It's archaic yet familiar. It has been portrayed as cold and calculated. That is nothing more than an acquaintance. It is nothing more than you saying to someone that you are simply orbiting their life, and that when you leave, despite whether or not you came back, the time you spent with them is just as worthless as the gaze you gave to the stranger down the street. The meaningful meaninglessness of words cannot be understated. Even in these cold, abject, and untrue statements, you can read everything about a person within a minute. Humanity is simply observable, and I am no difference. You taught me how valuable love is by showing me you never valued mine. Love was simply an obligation, a damnation, if you will, of being associated with me. That, then, when one does not fit your convenient, comfortable definition of love, love is not an obligation. It is a declaration, a commitment, a tipping of cards so both can abandon the deck and stroll onwards into the bright caress of the future. We did not have that, but I thank you for teaching me this. I fully realized this at 16 years old, back when I went by Andy Galupa. I dated Sirius Scarantine, finally having the love I want. I had someone who cared, someone who was there, despite your objection and perjury. My judgment was obscured by your coldness, akin to concrete which scraped against my skin. We had love. We loved each other deeply. Or at least I did, but I didn't show it. I didn't fully know it, not in the sense of not knowing what it felt like. At this point I did, if subconsciously. Didn't know how to show it. I couldn't separate my preconceived jaded notion of love from the truth of what it was. My statements were empty and my tongue was dull. I had been taught that it was meaningless, and so by that notion I lost what I finally wanted after 16 years. I sat with myself, feeling vindicated towards myself, an inward judgment which held me to make a standard of which I have come to now hold you and everyone else too. I made the same mistake as you, and by losing them I came to terms with myself, true healing. I had overcome how meaningfully meaningless words are. That I love you will not be all. That declaration needs action. It needs you to show up, to be there, to message them, to take long calls, to share yourself, even if it's ugly or disgusting, because they don't love some aspect of you, but all of you. Love is not only declaration, it is consumption of one to which you can then accept and be there for them. Love is not confined to such a cold statement as, I love you. I love you is simply a respectful mannerism which you show. A mannerism cannot still be respectful if disrespect dictates the action. I, now with my current girlfriend of February 13th, 2026, understand that. I will show her all, even if it's difficult, because in the end, I know her words are meaningful. As she will know mine are too, and I will be there. And she will be there for me. The meaninglessness will be lost, replaced with the meaningfulness of our attachment. Through thick and thin, and through struggle. That is in the finale of the masquerade. Masks will fall akin to civilization, clashing against the ground, and truth will surround. Who will stay and who will leave? It is not a matter of worth, it's a matter of morality. That who leaves you walks the path of unfulfilled worthlessness, and therefore be lost forevermore. I have learned not to cope, but to integrate. When we think of coping skills, we think of management, distraction, or detachment, or at least so I've been taught through my experience of false white-coated prophets. This has always disgusted me, as one cannot distract from oneself. It also disgusts me when I hear pessimist or optimist, the complete objectification and polarization of truth, the typical red versus blue, the pendulum of which swings back and forth. Back and forth in this liminal space of time. If I had chased the lie of coping, I would have never became better. I had been through basically every kind of abuse. I recall memories of my dad beating me or violently abusing my mom. I was taught he was mentally ill, to which he was an outlier. He was different, a monster of which his shadow would cascade over my life forevermore, despite his 6-year needed absence. I watched how humanity isolates and corrupts, how it needs monsters to obscure the truth, how dissociation has become the new norm. Think about it. You did something wrong, a mistake. You then ask your partner, did I do this wrong? You don't actually want the answer or truth. You don't. Why would you? It'd be inconvenient and hurtful. You would curl within yourself and negatively hurt yourself. You wouldn't want to be a pessimist after all. So you hope she or he or they will tell you didn't mess up or do anything wrong and that everything is okay. Maybe, depending on your ego, you're a great person, or a shallow compliment of which derives from a shallow need for comfort. You dissociate and create a different perception through linguistics. You discount the problem and justify yourself no matter the harm. This is not to your fault. We are hardwired to want comfortability. This is why we are at where we're at. Coping, from my experience, to which is not everyone's, is dishonest with oneself. It derives itself from a binary of positive or negative, never moving forward. Self-love and self-hatred. I both hate myself and love myself. I love my strengths, I hate my flaws, and I move forward to improve that because I accept myself, nothing more or less. You, family, have taught me how meaningless coping is, how dishonest it is, and how integration and honesty is more important than detachment. Not to say I have my bouts of dissociation. I do. That symptom will never clear, but I reflect. I did not choose Narcissia Netal to proclaim I was a narcissist, that of which I am not. If you choose to believe differently, then do. I have no time or want to change your opinion. Why would I? I don't know you. Narcissia originates from the Greek fable of narcissism, for I did not look in the water and see my reflection and fall obsessed and in love. I saw my flaws, my good and my bad, and how they clashed onto a canvas of pure white, expanding itself across the eons of which I am. I accepted myself with the notion of efforts to do better, and to which I have, despite your constant meandering otherwise. You've taught me how coping is meaningless, and how the culture of positivity only obscures truth. And by considering what happened to me and my father to be a monster at one and a time of which were very few were created, this view is dishonest. Monsters are not just created, they are enabled. Many of you dishonestly enabled this situation to which you then coped when I wanted you to accept. You lied and cared selfishly for yourself, for all else did not matter if you yourself felt uncomfortable with the matter. People like my father are not only mentally ill. Abusers do not just appear from some sadistic right of heaven. We create them, we enable them, then we obscure our blame and uphold some morality. I watched it happen with me. To tell you I didn't have some qualities from my father would be a hypocrite to everything I have said thus far. I cannot be dishonest with you, and then call you out. That is hypocritical. and I consider myself above such things, at least to the point if I was to commit hypocrisy and realize it, I would correct it. What I have never done is hurt another human being with my hands. I have never hurt another human being through touch. What I have done is say things to which I did not understand the meaning of, but that gap of knowledge does not alleviate the blame of which I must acknowledge. I have the fire of which could burn down the village, only to say it is still hungry and spread like the blitzkrieging soldiers of the Ghost Division. I have never committed physical violence, I can tell you that for sure. It was always verbal. When one goes through such trauma, despite the length or severity, one picks up habits of which one must diffuse. The nature versus nurture dictation of which now has become the law of psychology. I am not above said law. I am not above anyone, as you are not above or below me. We are all equal, and respect is deserved on the basis of humanity. That I will talk about later. I have learned how to manipulate, quite simply. When threatened with abandonment or threatened with instability, I would utilize that skill to turn the tide, whether for better or for worse. It was as if I was drunk off a power of which I could never discard, because I could never acknowledge. I learned how to fake emotions, of which one could then feel comfortable and have no idea how I felt inside or about them. A stone face of which could hide the true, raw, grinding, pulsating feeling beneath. A form of dishonesty not too arcane for most of us. Through my realization and through what you family have taught me, I must acknowledge this, to which I have. I am not vindicated based on some idea of betterness, but vindicated off my acknowledgement and attempt for respect. So what does this have to do with coping? Many of my family members have been through the same as me, to only cope. They drink until fermentation becomes the only acceptable feeling they can sustain, till the maw of death itself would swallow them whole. Or perhaps sex, to sell oneself for a worthless transaction that ultimately hurts them, spiraling into self-destruction of dishonesty. Or to say empty statements like, be kind, or don't be sad, empty dishonest statements disguised as therapy, to which they now view themselves as victims or survivors. The dialect can change, to which the meaning never will. I am neither a survivor nor a victim. I am an integrator. What I have been handed mostly cannot be changed or cured. I cannot buy back the time I lost. And I cannot refund this childhood for the one I wanted. All I could do is accept and move on, do better, be stronger, learn from the weak and the strong. I had seen that we consider everyone to either be weak or to be strong, to be the wolf or the sheep. To cope is to align yourself with a side of dishonest beings. I am both the wolf and the sheep. I am an integrator. I will be morally righteous and be what I never had, show the love of which I want. The respect of which I not only want, but which every human deserves, despite any label or description. My judgment and volition will only be served to those who fail the basic moral principle I hold myself and the rest of humanity to attempt to be human, to treat all with respect, and attempt to understand and love each other, and to understand that you yourself are not better or worse than anyone, and neither is anyone better or worse than you. With this reason I will stand strong like the wolf among the flock of sheep, and I will treat them with the softness and gentleness they deserve, the love we all deserve, and I will clamp my fangs around that which serves to hurt the sheep, no matter that wolf's justification. I have learned not to cope, but to integrate. I have learned that one is the wolf and the sheep, not one exclusively. The fangs hung like nooses from the maw of time itself. The flock leaped in its monotonous, routine way. The skin of the lamb and the softness of the caregiver, with the jaw of the wolf and the ferocity of the hunter, focused and wrathful towards the threat, kind and loving to the threatened. Denial of her strength was trivial. Disrespect resulted in the dagger. I have learned that respect is warfare, and that warfare is respect. I have often found relatability in characters. Often the best form of flattery is not imitation, but integration in some sense. Taking quotes of which you love and making them into something more, something meaningful to you. This is where fan-made work comes in. I present to you 3 quotes I will use in this section. I am the master of my fate, the captain of my soul, William Ernest Henley. Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, René Descartes. Before man awaited war, the ultimate trade awaiting the ultimate practitioner, Judge Holden, Cormac McCarthy. I have learned that respect is often warfare, and that respect is a cutthroat fashion. There are many who will hate you just for being associated with someone else, the primality of humanity. I had never came to realize this until I remained in a timeline of which I disapprove vehemently. Age has only shown me the primality and savagery of humanity, and that humanity has never come further than the swamps of Tanzania. We had never became anything more than the animals who are clothed and weaponized. We hate those of which transcend our comfortable need for primal factions, those who fit a close enough description of those we need to hate, whether for our own comfortability or the approval of the clan, and the need for war. Respect has always been a divination of war. It is war of which has devolved, not respect. Before man awaited war. Cormac McCarthy wrote this in the book Blood Meridian, and those words bleed truth when you realize that war is not. War is not defined by killing or violence, or our conceived notions of the dangerous sport of which nations engage in. That I am not only against, but consider to be the shallowest form of respect. War is all conflict. Violence and killing, the modern conception of war, is only a version of war. When you play a game of soccer, it is a simple game of skill. It is a skill that will gain you respect, of which some will doubt or hate you for only an insignia or a perceived notion of artificial athleticism. Respect is then earned through the skill and demonstration of skill. Winning and victory is only a primal idea of what earns respect, or what inspires dissidence. I compare football loyalty, American football. I have grown in Western New York all my life, and there is an undying love for the Buffalo Bills. There is a whole mafia and culture of which worships the blue-headed warriors, of which play the finest display of war on national television. If respect was only dictated by those who won or lost, then the Buffalo Bills would have no respect. They have never won a Super Bowl. So why would they deserve worship and praise? This displays my point. Respect, of which is always earned by warfare, does not come from the winning or losing, but the skill displayed by the engagers of it. Warfare is not confined to the malicious notions of it. It is not confined to malevolence. Often it is compared, but it is a primal, demeaning view of this word and its meaning. Warfare happens in nature, and it displays how respect is earned. Peacocks display this. They show their prettiness outwards to their mate. The art of war and the earning of respect is not shown through blood and might, but through confidence and beauty, its courtship, and love, to which show what it has to offer. And therefore would gain the respect to then mate and pass on its genes. This is a demonstration of warfare. Another one, a board game, perhaps shoot or ladders. A game of chance, to which then earns respect among the children who play it, because again, it is not about the war or the win, but about the skill and calmness shown, about the kindness shown in this infantile showing of war. Warfare, again, is not confined by violence. Warfare is the showing of skill, and to some degrees we have adapted that to our violent nature. Before man, war waited within nature. Man embraced it, to then crimson it and justify it by morality, and then understand that killing sport as respect. Once this distinction and redefinition is made, you can now understand how respect is earned. What one respects the most is one who seems the same a reflection of one's self. Our friendships are just an imprint on each other, justifying said connection. If one hates themselves, then they will hate you. People call you what they think they are. It is as simple as that, and has never been anything more or less. We create the rules of warfare and justify it by our morality. Family had taught me that warfare demonstrates respect. That one's skill, even if resulting in defeat, dictates said respect despite the outcome. Y'all had taught me that it doesn't matter if I lose in the moment, but how I showed up in said moment. In our warfare of civil disagreements, legal rights, and realization, I have earned the respect of those more meaningful than those you claim to have in your clan. That I have come to realize, and I shall use a former name in this ebook. Sirius Scarantine. He came back to me after I texted him, acknowledging my mistake. He gained further respect for me, my new understanding of humanity, and my understanding of my family and my confrontation of it. He and many other friends I have gained, few but fulfilling, had realized that the conceived notion of which you falsely painted of me is not true. Even in my own doubts, I have asked my friends if I am narcissistic or if I am handling this or that wrong. I am no stranger to bias, as I am not above humanity. My mastership is not one above humanity, but one of my fate through the acknowledgement of my humanity. I have always treated them with honesty, and I have been shown honesty too, even if it's hard to believe on my own given my jaded belief of self. My view of myself is one that is jaded for the worst, but I am trying to transform neutral and honest, slowly. I had realized that my warfare of words and actions of which vindicates and liberated myself of this pain of which family ignored and had gained the respect of which I now call my clan. My family, and that by becoming the master of my fate and my soul, could now face myself with the honesty of which I expected everyone else to face themselves too. And turn for the better through the correction of my past mistakes and my future ones. Warfare had gained my respect. Respect is also warfare. Many of my family members have attempted to selfishly and dishonestly erode my image for their own gain and convenience because, again, people call you who they are. The reflection of insults reveals the insulter. The warfare I have waged, one of civility and honesty, to which I write this and call them out, has gained me the respect of which I now have of those around me. I show to you not a sinner or a saint, but as an honest reflection of myself and the species I am a part of. That is the truth of which they will conjure to justify their own dishonest disrespect of my character. Their lies do not dictate my existence, because simply I had come to realize I am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, and therefore I am. And what I think shall display what I am to the crowd, and if said crowd has an honest criticism and judgment, I would entertain and integrate that to better myself towards the future. Respect is warfare, and warfare is respect. Respect is earned through the might of one's perceived morality. The crowd is never unified, and the factions are never diversified. We claim groups and clans to justify our comfortability. We will never overcome what we are without acknowledging what we have always been. You can take the reins, be the master of your fate. You think, therefore you are, and embrace your trade, not the lie. We are practitioners of the future, not travelers to the past. The conclusion, the lessons you taught me, and what I can never forget. There is much growth I have to make, and mistakes I have probably made even within this conflict of which we have been through. I am not devoid of mistakes, merely honest to them. I have many things internally and externally to reconcile, of which is my journey and my journey alone. But if any of this taught me anything, it's to understand worth, the worth of who you keep around and the worth of what you can learn, and how separate those are. What you have taught me, whether for good or for worse, will forever haunt me. There is nothing more or less I could say on it, for I have said the three major umbrellas of which all other actions are justified under. I can no longer have room in my heart or soul for the planets I have orbited. Dead would conceive that it was once alive. It was never there. It was always absent, to which I have begun to have now. My skeletons do not hide in my closet, but hang around my neck, to which I will tell everyone, even despite their judgment or reaction, because I will not lie to myself or them for some comfortability. Such action is a hollow one, of which you showed me its valueness. I will not demean myself for you. My worth is not only defined from inwards, but the fact that others respect me for being human. I am not a hero nor savior, and I am not a villain nor demon. My definition will always molt and change, but I will embrace my fate no matter what. I will continue forth as I always had, and you will be never more to me because you never were. The lessons you taught me will now be embraced and integrated to become something better than I ever was. Kaizen. You will no longer dictate my existence for your shallow gain. You had no part in my future, so you have no inheritance to my story. My strength is not defined for your convenience or sold for your approval. You do not dictate my existence or character, and cannot reliably say who I am. You're unreliable. You will not sully my name out of denial for yourself. You will not lie to the crowd. I will show the truth and smile as they realize. I am neither a narcissist nor an empath. I am neither the wolf nor the sheep. I am the combination of both in the acknowledgement of humanity. I am the somewhat raw, somewhat uncomfortable, somewhat comfortable, somewhat respectable form of humanity of which we all strive to be. I am human, I think, and therefore I am. I am Narcissia Netal, and you shall address me by said name. Oh, you address me as nothing, nothing at all. Let strength be defined by the most respectable divination of war, the acknowledgement and confrontation of oneself. And let all who do not seek to know more not tell the story of what they do not know, because they aren't there.